Welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors. Today we're going to talk about escape and evasion kits. I've done some videos on escape and evasion kits in the past, different type of kit options and ideas, and these are always just things I kind of throw out there. It's not something that necessarily is, I guess you could say, set in stone, and I have different kits for different specific things, which I think we may all kind of cover. I also have this particular kit with Go Tube, and I don't know if I've ever talked about what I carry inside there. So most of this video we're going to kind of focus on that. So the idea of an escape and evasion kit or a sear kit or whatever, it all has, there's different origins for these kits, you know, going back to the SOE, the OSS, and fighter pilots, World War II, and even before that, there's you know, elements of survival kits that people would carry with them. Perhaps one of the most popular would be the Altoids kit, at least more popular in the United States, or they would call it a plasters kit, or Band-Aids is, you know, the name brand that we'd use. And it was just a Band-Aid, you know, container that you could just slide in matches and a compass and things of that nature in case you were lost, that you could rely on. The concept of that came from Lofty Weissman, the kind of famed SAS soldier and author of the SAS Survival Guide or Survival book. And the idea behind it in a combat situation was that if you had your line, kind of your load-bearing equipment, web equipment, you had your backpack, you had to drop all of these things, you had one thing in your pocket to rely on, you could actually rely on something like this. And in fact, there is one particular story in the Gulf War of an SAS officer who, in fact, did rely on his pocket survival kit to get through his particular ordeal. And so there is actual stories out there of people who have actually relied on these kits in reality. I don't know if I necessarily need to go into this kit. It's mostly wilderness focused. I think I went through this already in another video, so you can check that out. The other kit that I have here is, I guess, would be kind of more of a urban kit, I guess you could say. It's not so much of an escape and evasion kit per se, as much as it is just kind of good tools to have with you. For different purposes in more of an urban environment. So I have one of these really cool signal mirrors. It's a small 1-inch signal mirror that can go clip onto MOLLE. Of course, a Winston telemeter, some lock picks, shims, bypass tools, little tiny chem lights, a little razor blade, and then this is just a pen, one of those space pens, and a small mag light, and then a whistle. So pretty standard kit, pretty basic kit. Nothing, you know, too crazy. But the idea here is that this is stuff that I could potentially wear this on my belt. I'm moving through an environment. I need a pen or a flashlight, probably two of the most common things you need throughout the day, or having backup of, you know, I want to have access to this whistle. I could certainly wear that around my neck too, but, you know, again, it might not be convenient or be possible. I could put this little satchel on my backpack, or again, like I said, on my belt, and be able to have access to these items as needed. Another razor blade, just, you know, again, this is just a simple escape tool as well. And then, you know, the lock picks and of course, and bypass tools and handcuff keys and all that kind of stuff that we'll talk about in a second, you know, can be layered onto my clothing. This little guy here in the previous video, you probably noticed, you can put this on a button in your trousers. You could wear this in all sorts of different means to hide these tools. So it's a nice thing to have. You know, I have the flat lockpick kit here, Bogota set, so I can hide this behind my phone case. as needed. So, you know, again, it's all about accessibility with this kit. It's all about, you know, not concealing it. It's making these tools accessible. Little pocket compass or Sunto clipper. Did a lot of posts and talks about this. It's a pretty good tool. Great backup compass. Can even be used in some circumstances as your primary compass as needed. So that's that kit. You know, again, it's stuff that I might want to grab and have access to quite quickly, readily. It's not kind of what I would say is more traditional escape and evasion type gear. One thing I want to notice or note on a kit like this that, you know, is going to have matches and a saw and a fishing kits and whistles and dental floss and a little arrowhead and, you know, all sorts of, you know, wire for snares and that kind of thing. You know, it's been these kind of kits have been popularized, and you often see pocket survival kits at like a Walmart or wherever. And really, the intended market for those kits is mothers sending their boys or girls out to camp for the first time or scouting or events or whatever, and they think that by having these survival kits in their pocket they're going to be able to rely on them, and so it's, in a sense, I like to call them cold medicine, right? When you're using a pocket survival kit in that way, it's the same thing in cold medicine. It doesn't do anything to actually solve the problem with the cold. It just is something that a mom can give to their kid to make them feel like they're still mothering and they're in control, or that they're doing something to be helpful. And in that case, these kits are not very helpful. So you really need to have the skill set. You really need to understand your environment that you're in and building those kits to that environment and building kind of out what you need. The redundancies perhaps that you might need, or the things that you really need to rely on in that specific environment. So it's not a rotisserie chicken, set it, forget it kind of deal. It really is something that you want to think about and actively plan and consider. Weight, container, you know, environmental considerations, and so on and so forth. So, okay, so let's get to this other kit here. And this is more kind of what would be, I would say, more kind of classical kind of escape and evasion type kit. So the items that you would carry that if you were abducted and you could use to get yourself out of that jam. It's going to, like a lot of what we talk about on this website is, you know, this, you know, the evasion aspect of survival, where it kind of it overlaps between an urban environment and a rural or wilderness environment. And I think that that's really kind of an important part that a lot of people don't consider, is that you really need to kind of think about both of those environments in terms of survival, because you're going to be either moving through an urban environment, or you're going to be starting out in an urban environment and taking to a rural or a less developed area, potentially. So there's lots of different kind of considerations and thoughts that you could put into that. The idea here is that you want to be actively thinking about the type of tools and the types of kit that you have, the type of ways in which maybe individuals might bind you, if they're going to bind you, if that's something that you're concerned with. Also, before I get too far into this kit too, I do also want to mention that lots of this stuff is DIY. You don't have to buy any of this stuff. And in fact, I would avoid buying this stuff as a kit or ready-made kit. In most cases, again, just like what we're talking about with the cold medicine, it doesn't really fit everybody's needs. Might be a little more expensive, but probably a little bit more impactful or better to actually focus in on the type of gear that you need, which means that if you are making that selection, you have an understanding of how to use that gear. Whereas if you're buying kind of a ready-made kit, you're letting somebody else make that selection for you, and it's basically saying, I really don't care. You know, I really don't know enough about this information so that I could do this myself. So it's about kind of that kind of aspect of taking ownership. The other thing I want to really stress that I think is extremely important is all of these videos, these things you do, you see myself included on escape and evasion tools and all these escape measures and all the stuff is you really don't need more than one, maybe two tools. You can select one or two tools and be fine. One of the things I like to stress in a lot of the stuff that I write and teach about is priorities. And oftentimes we have to think about things in terms of, worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to happen. But it also means that we're going to try to make plans to mitigate those things from happening. So when we talk about communications, we talk about a PACE plan. PACE standing for primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency. And oftentimes the emergency stuff, that survival stuff, is the sexy thing. And that's what everyone wants to go straight to. And when you go right to that emergency plan, and when you put all of your time and emphasis on that emergency plan, you're actually planning to fail. That's what that expression actually really means, is that you're actually focused on that emergency. You're not putting in the plan, in your primary plan together or an alternate plan together. You're just going right to that emergency, and it's not going to work out in the way that you kind of dream it to work out. For most people, in most situations, they'll never need any of these tools or these things. Now, that being said, there are situations where people are taken off the street. There are situations, domestic violence situations happen all the time, all across America, and many of those are unreported. And nobody in the kind of tactical community likes to talk about domestic violence for a number of different reasons. But women and children are often in the most danger from these types of things. It's not just these executives traveling to Mexico or some bullshit, theoretical situations that people put into, the magazines and the blogs and the stuff in this tactical environment when they're talking about escape and evasion kits. It's a real issue and it's a real concern. And these are skill sets that can help real people out. And particularly when we put that into real specific context. All right, so now it's about 10 minutes or so has gone by. We still haven't gone into the kit. This is why you clicked onto this video, I'm sure, so let's jump into it. What do I have in my kits? Now, you'll notice I have two go-tos. Now, I use them for different things. One is I do have a layering kit, what I call a layering kit, and it has some items in there that I might kind of want to refer to. There are more specific situations that I may or may not have, on my person. But I've shown a video before. This is a tissue map. So this is just kind of a placeholder, I guess, for, anyone's specific area. They could print out a tissue map of their area. And this one's pretty well used, so it's starting to rip up pretty good. But it's a nice scrunchy map that you can have with you on your kit. A little compass, a little thumbtack. That's a good signaling device if you wanted to signal that putting this thumbtack in a specific place at a specific time could mean a specific thing. So someone that could see that thumbtack, they could say, oh, okay, yeah, okay, this is what that means. It can also be used to help break into a door that is latched as well, and I have videos on that as well. So little handcuff shim, little covert key, handcuff key, tiny paper binder that you can just basically carry in your pocket. No one would ever know. You just kind of squeeze this side, and now you've got yourself a handcuff key right here. So super nice, and much more concealable and less obvious than this crap. Plastic is great because it's lightweight, non-metallic detected. Metal is great because it's not going to break in the keyway. It's robust. Just got to be careful about wearing these all the time because these things will rust. So you want to be considerate of that. Plus, you need to be able to manipulate to get this device out of its thing. But it's and then get the pin over so you can actually kind of get some purchase while you're making your turn. The nice thing about this pin, though, is it was fantastic for shoelaces, hides in a shoe like super well. So it's a great tool. I think it's from Oscar Delta. Same with the Go Tube. Bobby pin, done videos on that. I don't think we need to go into it, but it's probably the best, one of the best escape tools. If you're not going to carry anything, just carry a couple bobby pins. That's all you really need most of the time. Hair barrette, this thing can made. You just make this part into a shim, super easy. This little bundle of joy here is my swinger compass and another handcuff ring. This little bundle is put together and it fits in my watch band. So I can just take my watch and I slide this little thing in here. I have a compass and a handcuff key with me anywhere I go now. So I can just put that in there. You could put an SD card, you could put gold, all sorts of different items inside your band there, and boom, now you've got yourself protected. So that's that go tube. Again, this is kind of odds and ends and knickknacks, more or less, things that you might wear on your person. Have that go tube with you for micro caches or moving material or whatever kind of other kind of neat necessities or functions. This is kind of a ready-made kit. This stuff actually stays in the tube. It's pretty much the kit that kind of goes with me anywhere and everywhere. The advantage with these go tubes, as we talked about in previous videos, check out the concealment video if you're interested in this stuff too, because I think you'll find that interesting. But these are deep concealment devices, meaning that they're designed to be hidden on your person in kind of places where people aren't going to necessarily inspect. That means your groin, perhaps your armpits, you know, inside a rectal cavity, that kind of thing. So it's a special built tool for this purpose. So let's get into the kit itself. Right at the top here is just some string. The string is just for basic clothing repairs. Pretty much, or thread rather. More Spectre cord here. This is great stuff. It creates lots of heat, so it's great for cutting through ropes, bindings, plastic, that kind of stuff. And it does much better job and has a higher tensile strength than the dental floss. Now, if you didn't have something like this that does 40, I think it's like 40 pounds or something of tensile strength versus, you know, 4 pounds or something of your dental floss. But you could pretty much get by with dental floss for most situations anyway. Open up the back end. So here's another bit of that. So I have two of those, and I have this right here in the cap. That's an NFC chip. I've done some posts on that. It's essentially just a micro, I guess you could call it a microchip that you can carry money on, Bitcoin. You can carry survival guides, PDFs, all sorts of stuff, and you just access that with your phone. You can always use these past messages. You can use these for many different things. You can use it to program your phone so that when your phone passes this, it does certain things, like an alarm goes off or it calls somebody. So you could load this with, like, say, an emergency number, pass your phone over it, and then your phone would automatically call that number, 911, or a person, whomever, that you could get in contact with. So lots of different unique functionalities with these things. I definitely recommend checking out the blog post on that if you're interested. They're also waterproof. They don't have, there's no power associated to it. So it's very robust. So definitely a great tool. A jeweler's saw or diamond saw. These things are great for restraints, but also for making keys. If you had to replicate a key out in the field, you could do that with something like this. I've made, if you need to make a split paw shim, say you find out in your area that this is the tool that you need, but you only have a regular shim, in 5 minutes you can make yourself a shim. I have a video on that. Small chem light, super handy, especially if you need to lockpick a door open without being noticed. We talked about before the importance of having bobby pins, so I have a few of those. A big stout needle, great thing to have for repairs, particularly for Cordura or leather, that type of stuff. Some fishing hooks. You know, most of the time, most places there's water, there's fish of some kind. So if you're gonna kind of focus on two different means of sustenance procuring, it's going to be snares. And so you've got your cordage here for that, and fishing. So you can always fish, and you can always snare in most environments. Another handcuff key, another thumbtack, an SD card wrapped in tinfoil, so you could load that with information. And then a little button compass to go with your to make or to do direction finding, your cardinal directions. Not a very good compass, but it's something. And then in here I have a little piece of chalk, and the chalk can be used to write on. If you're want to write a message on a brick wall or stone wall or a bathroom or a outhouse or a road, you can do that. Or you could use it for signaling. You could use it for all lots of different means. So that very kind of iconic swiping your bit of chalk across a post post box, for example. The kind of that iconic tradecraft of the spies to leaving messages. So chalk, a little bit of chalk is handy. It also kind of washes off, which is also quite handy. So that's and then lastly here is just a magnesium stick. A lot of times people travel with the bigger ones. I find that if you just have a lighter, you're probably fine for 90% of the time, and a small little thing is all you really need, because you're never going to need the big one ever. But having something like this that can get wet, you can hide it, you can get a fire going pretty quickly. And then lastly, which you can use as the striker for this, but also using for cutting restraints and other things, is the carbon fiber razor blade. So this is it's a metallic, but it's low metallic, so it's not going to set off metal detectors. It is lightweight. You can hide it in a shoe. You can hide it in many different locations. It has a little plastic sleeve. It's very easy. Don't try this at home, but prisoners have used something like this and hid this in their cheeks, in their mouth. That's easy to be done, and you can also hide something like this subdermally under your skin as well, and then be able to. You'd have to be able to cut it out, but you could do that with a fingernail. Great way to get an infection as well. So these are two different things that have been done in history, but I would say if you thought about doing something like that, consult a physician first. Yeah, so that is pretty much my kit. It's not terribly complicated. There's some specialized items in here. I mean, you can get these stupid button compasses, super expensive, and they say they're better than anything else, but I don't know. Or you can get the cheap 50-cent ones, 25-cent ones in a bundle, and they're probably going to be just as good, to be honest. Yeah, there are these Japanese versions that are a little bit more sturdier, accurate maybe, but I have no idea. Put in the comments down below if you have any real uses with those, but I think it's mostly bullshit. Again, if you didn't want the specialty stuff, some bobby pins, fish hook, some dental floss instead of that, a big needle of some kind, super helpful. So I was rambling on forever, and my GoPro went out of juice. So with that, I'll leave it to you. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them down below. But this is just a basic primer, essentially, in some pocket, I guess you could say pocket survival kits or escape and evasion kits, however you want to put that. As I said, like and subscribe, and let me know if you're enjoying these videos, and if there's topics that I could cover that I'm not, that you would like me to do so. Thanks again.